What's going on, everyone? Jeremy here from The Quartering, and we're winding down on The Last of Us 2 coverage. I suppose there'll be more when it comes to final sales numbers, but I've been following the Pewdiepie playthrough of The Last of Us 2 because why wouldn't I? Many of his streams have more than 100,000 concurrent viewers, and you get to see somebody's real-time reactions who hasn't been spoiled, and who also loved the first game. But before I get into that, now fans are calling out The Last of Us 2 over false advertising. This via Essentially Sports just this morning. Mere hours following the release, fans bombarded The Last of Us 2 with poor reviews and online scores. However, this wasn't a result of players finishing the game, as that would simply defy the laws of times and physics. The collective hate stemmed from beloved characters' early demise in the game. Yes! Thank you. Not a game journalist saying that it's all because of LGBT hate, even though everyone liked the game just fine. The first one and the DLC. Whether it's a gaming studio or production houses, a trailer preceding a major release plays a big role. A well-crafted trailer leaves the average viewer curious about wanting more is generally a sign of success. Unfortunately, a good trailer sometimes involves gameplay that could entice or influence a player's decision to a great extent, but it may not be what it seems. It would be harsh to brand The Last of Us 2 trailers as, quote, false advertising. Yes, fans have a genuine reason to be upset, but it's not because Naughty Dog's failing to deliver something. Misdirection is a powerful tool that can be used to break a bigger entity that follows. Some fans believe Naughty Dog deliberately misled fans into falling for a concept that was purely fictional. In the original trailers of The Last of Us 2, Naughty Dog gives Joel plenty of screen time. As fans, the majority of us expected the sequel to be yet another horror adventure featuring Joel and Ellie. As we now know, that wasn't the case whatsoever. The game's antagonist, Abby, ends Joel just a few hours into the game, and it's a big reason, the hate, and the catalyst that triggered thousands of negative reviews. You can see, thank you for misleading everyone into buying this game by intentionally swapping the character models and recording lines with Troy Baker solely for the trailers and advertisements, as they were actually lines spoken for other characters in the game. Very stunning. Another notable case of Naughty Dog intentionally misleading people, having present-day models of Joel and Ellie interacting in the trailers, thinking the duo would have had an adventure again, when in the final game, it's just a flashback scene. I could definitely see why people would be, feel misled by that. And, we'll check in on the current Metacritic scores here in just a minute, but I thought this tweet from Den of the Geek was a funny, didn't age so well. It says, while violent and gruesome at times, new PlayStation hit Last of Us Part 2 is ultimately a story about love conquering hate. We discuss how love ties both games together. Let's just take a look at some of the replies. Here's one you might know. Remember when love totally smashed hate's face with a golf club? Just because it sold 4 million copies does not mean it conquers hate if they bought it. It means they played us. Nice advertising almost looks as if it's unbiased. Thinking about the ending this way literally made me tear up. I mean, the whole, I love a good ratio. If anything, letting Abby live after a slew of everyone close to her is about being cruel for its own sake. But what do I know? I'm not an orator. I just play video games. I mean, the whole narrative that there's a small contingent of people that dislike the game is absurd when you look at basically every reply. The story was trash. That would be fine, but it didn't conquer anything in The Last of Us 2. Quite the opposite. I mean, just everybody dumping on this. And if we look at just the Metacritic score right now, it's at, actually, I should probably refresh this. We're coming close to 100,000 reviews. Let's call it 100,000 for just for ease of numbers. You have 4.8. You have a 4.8 critical score, or user review score. Now, it'd be interesting to see this over time. I remember it as low as, 3.4? 3.5, if I remember correctly. And so having it be, up to nearly 5 means that we've seen a huge wave of overwhelmingly positive reviews, because as more reviews pile in, it becomes way more difficult to move this score. But we still see, the frustrating thing about these reviews is really the numbers of zeros and the number of tens. Now, zeros could come from a variety of places. One, people that just see the game as, being concerned about having an agenda, or seeing the game as, maybe they don't like Neil Druckmann, or maybe they're 2 hours into the game. A big narrative from game journalists was that, oh, nobody could have possibly finished the game right now. How could they review it? Well, if I'm 2 hours into a video game and I'm fully under the impression that I'm going to be playing as one character, a beloved character, and then after 2 hours that character is ended and I'm forced to play as the person that did it, I could see somebody putting the game down and leaving a 0 review. However, the 10s are equally sus. The game is not a 10. The game is not a 0. I would love to see the actual review if you rule out all the 0s and 10s. It's probably like, I bet you it's a 6, which is probably a 6 or a 7, which is probably a fair score for the game. But the idea that it's a 10, here you have graphics, gameplay, and frame rates are good. The story is twisted and depressing. The game had too much drama for my taste. The first game had drama, but it ended on a positive note. This one could have been different, but the writers chose a different path than I would have. 2. Okay. Reasonable review, right? The Last of Us 2 is an amazing piece of media, not only a video game, but so much more. Sometimes bleak, sometimes wrenching, sometimes heartwarming, sometimes terrifying, blah, blah, blah. 9 out of 10. And your entire review is essentially about, how much you just love the game. The world, character, story, gameplay, graphics, sound, and music are a whole different level. A tale of regret, sadness, hatred. I mean, it's like, this is written, it's like so much praise. This person, I absolutely love it, but then you see a 0 out of 10. Politics, politics, politics. What a disrespect for the game is to us fans. I don't know why any sane person would want to play this game. Sure, the graphics are stunning and the areas are beautiful, but the story sucks, the character sucks, and again, the story sucks. However, one person that got to experience it all real time was Pewdiepie. And now he called out the game, called it a mess, and scores out of 10. This is via Game Rant. Popular YouTuber Pewdiepie finishes his stream in The Last of Us 2, offering his opinion and giving the game a score out of 10. Prior to launch, Naughty Dog acknowledged that The Last of Us 2 would be a divisive game, and so far that prediction has proved to be correct. It's been a massive sales success. How are people saying that already? How can you say that this early? Yes, it sold 4 million copies, and it sold them very quickly, but it's got a long way to go to even outsell the first one. The Last of Us 2 has been review graded on Metacritic, dropping its user score to an abysmal 3.4 compared to its impressive 9.5 average. Everyone has been offering their opinion on The Last of Us 2, including that popular YouTuber Pewdiepie, who has been live streaming his playthrough of the game. Pewdiepie has recently completed The Last of Us 2 playthrough and revealed his thoughts on the game. Quote, I think everything was a mess, so I didn't have much expectations after that. Pewdiepie said that after completing The Last of Us 2, he went on to single out the way The Last of Us 2 story was structured as the main reason why the game didn't land with him. If they change the order of things, I think that makes it better, and if they tighten up some parts, he said. I guess I would rather play the game than a mediocre game, even though I really, really didn't like it. He also said that he wouldn't play through The Last of Us 2 again, but would consider it if the game had been a little shorter. Pewdiepie had some praise for the game. For example, he said it was a good thing that The Last of Us 2 featured a gay couple and was going to be played by millions of people. He added that he had a lot of fun streaming it as well, ultimately rated the game The Last of Us 2 a 6 out of 10, and said he didn't hate it. Well, that's about what I would rate the game. I think based on, you look at everybody's reviews, you kind of, you adjust the critics' reviews. You kind of try to remove the 0s and the 10s from the Metacritics. And the game is probably a 6, maybe a 7. That's what it'll go down as in terms of most users. Now, he didn't hate it. That's not exactly huge praise for somebody that has 100,000 potential customers watching. I don't know how much live stream playthroughs really affect sales. I'm not saying that as a way to say like they don't or they do. I don't know. I haven't seen any data. But I imagine if you see 100,000 people, you know, watching PewDiePie slug, and by the way, the 6 out of 10 seems higher than I would have expected. Seen some of the clips, how he just hated having to play as Abby, and how some of the weird scenes, you know, his reactions to certain things. It'll be interesting. It goes on to say, it will also be interesting to see how the public reaction to Last of Us 2 changes with time. It's possible that detractors will have a higher opinion of it when they have a bit more time to process the more controversial story decisions. And on the flip side, maybe those who like the game will find it less appealing in retrospect. In the meantime, discussion around The Last of Us 2 story and the quality of the game will likely continue in the weeks ahead. Look, I'll put it this way. The game looks great. Combat looks repetitive after time. But, I mean, the game, and also it should be said that the game came out without any major bug issues. It is kind of a bummer that there'll be no DLC. I mean, continued added value for the customers that paid $60, $80, or $200 if you bought the Super Mega Ultra editions. But ultimately, I don't think anybody really wants to say, yeah, it looked good, but I hated the story. I suppose the people in the graphics and the technical and mocap, for example, for the game probably hear that as a compliment. But you know, Neil Druckmann almost certainly does not. What did you think about the game? Did you enjoy it? Hey, I hope that today is the day that I've earned your subscription. There's a little red button right below this video. I cover a lot of things that just aren't The Last of Us 2. I cover pop culture, movies, music, just about everything outside of just pure politics. And I hope that you'll subscribe today. Hope you enjoyed this video. We'll talk to you again real soon.